It's a $160 clone vehicle. Okay, this could be a lot of things. Releasing in the 20th anniversary year for Revenge of the Sith. All right, I like where this is going. And it has Galactic Marines, Commander Bakara, and Ki-Adi-Mundi. Oh my god, we're finally getting a UT-80. Hopefully they have wastegapes on the clone troopers. Oh man. Remove your blindfold. Okay. Every once in a while, LEGO Star Wars releases a set that makes you think,
boy, have you lost your mind, because I'll help you find it.
And that's exactly what it feels like we have here in the 75413 Republic Juggernaut with 813 pieces for $160. There's a laundry list of issues this set seems to have that we're going to address in this review. The price, the quality of the minifigs, the fact that it's not a UT-AT, the size, the stability, the fact that it's not a UT-AT. Let's go through the motions here first, though. The box art does look pretty cool, even though I'm not sure which planet it's taking place on. It's certainly not at the exact place of Order 66 on Megiddo that we see all of these characters together. The back of the box highlights some of the features and functions of the Turbo Tank or Tiny Tank or Republic Juggernaut, whatever we're calling it these days, as well as showing it opened up in kind of an opposite orientation. Anyway, I'm super excited to unbox this set, not because I think it's going to be good at all. Inside, we've got a sleeve protecting your instruction manual, just normal LEGO instructions here. You've also got the sticker sheet in there, which just a few stickers in this set. And then finally, you've got 6 numbered bags with an additional 7th holding your sand blue pieces for the wheels. We've got 8 figures in total here, 5 of which are actual minifigs and 3 of which are battle droids. And I'll start out with my favorite figure in the set, and that is Ki-Adi-Mundi. This is an excellent Jedi minifigure, seeing some slight updates from the last time that we saw him in 2018. He also still makes use of the amazing looking piece with that ponytail print on the back that represents where his second brain is. Some people may have been hoping for arm printing on this fig, but from what I can tell in Revenge of the Sith, arm printing is absolutely not needed. Just blank tan arms do the job more than well enough. So Ki-Adi-Mundi here, 10 out of 10 fig, great job. Next we have Commander Bakara for the first time in LEGO Star Wars form here, and much like almost every other clone for the last 4 years, he is littered with issues. We'll start with the one highlight on this fig though, and it's that they made him a unique helmet mold with the antenna molded into it. I think the shaping on it is really accurate and nice. Just when it comes to the print, it ends up making him look a little bit chipmunky, and Kamino and Customs on Instagram edited this side-by-side that perfectly illustrates what I'm talking about. The print on the face is just too small. It doesn't fill out the helmet like it's supposed to, like it does in universe, and ultimately it ends up looking a little bit awkward and chipmunky is probably the best way I can describe it. Do want to give credit for getting the correct 2 red dots and number of lines on the cheek. Rare, correct, accurate detail on clone troopers from the LEGO Star Wars minifig designer. That same attention to detail unfortunately did not carry down on the torso, where you've got some straps and a small breastplate on top of kind of the standard clone trooper armor from 2020 onwards, with a little bit of wear and tear on there that you see throughout the fig. But it's a strap and that little breastplate that I have an issue with. The strap should be maroon red and then fade down to black somewhere south of that little seatbelt looking thing. It's clearly that color on the character in universe. And then the breastplate is way too small, pushed up and into the corner of the torso instead of covering that entire white square there on Bakara's chest. And it's kind of ironic because when they did the ammo pouch on Captain Rex, they made it way too big, and now they're making this breastplate way too small. And it's even crazier when you consider back in 2020 with the perfect 212th Airborne Trooper, they made it the perfect size and they included the correct detail. You see that orange stripe on the Airborne Trooper? Well, Commander Bakara should have a similar maroon stripe that looks like a continuation of the strap in that corner. I don't know why they couldn't do this. They did this perfectly fine 5 years ago, and Commander Bakara's torso is just plainly inaccurate, bad and wrong. One little thing I would have loved to see added here is a small bit of arm printing to represent that tiny little pauldron he wears. Like, that would have been nice too, seeing as this is a $160 set and probably the only time we're ever getting this character. And you already knew this, but there is of course just the printed slivers of a waist cape just to remind you that you aren't getting the physical waist cape that you should be getting. So really unfortunate there. Of course, you've got the standard clone trooper head underneath. Nothing else exciting about the figure going on. Outside of the fact that they made a new helmet mold, I really do not care for this figure at all. And the color, because of the torso lacking any maroon red, feels super imbalanced on him. Like, having that little arm print and correct torso detailing would have gone a long way here. It's just a shame you wait 20 years and you get slopped. Now, I think the Galactic Marines fared better, and that starts with the helmet mold looking amazing. It's a dual molded helmet. After years of speculation of LEGO potentially just reusing the Snowtrooper helmet mold for Galactic Marines, turns out that wouldn't have worked very well, and so you needed to do a dual mold that incorporates that dark red color perfectly with the white there, and I think it looks so nice. Unfortunately, the eye print is a bit of an issue. Unlike as advertised on the box, they are much further from touching the dark red on top than they should be, but even more problematic to me is the fact that they made the eyes black instead of green when in the movie they are green. Like, literally the only canonical appearance of Galactic Marines Marines green, and yet they make the eyes black here. I just don't get it. It's really basic stuff, and they would have looked so cool with the green eyes. Getting lower though, the torso and leg design, bar of course the excluded waist cape, is great. Like, great job. A cloth waist cape would have gone a long way on these figs especially, but it's modern Lego Star Wars. What do you expect in an overpriced $160 set? Quality? No. You're not getting that. Briefly on the back, there's a simple backpack build, no printed piece on there, which I'm indifferent about. I think it looks okay like that, but I know some people definitely wanted that to be printed. And then your back design is going to be a pretty standard Clone Trooper back design. Also, normal Lego Clone Trooper face, stuff like that. So Galactic Marine, overall, a good looking figure. I'm like okay with it. But when you think about it, with the Galactic Marines and Commander Bakara and really any Lego Star Wars Clone Troopers that are coming out these days, the reality is that if these figures released 10 years ago, they would have been the perfect version of these characters. Like, imagine if we had gotten these in 2014, how good they would be compared to what they are now. And when you think about that, how could you possibly accept what Lego Star Wars is putting out today? I certainly can't. I'm tired of it. And it sucks even more because these are characters I've waited so long to get. Finally, we have 3 battle droids here, which always feel like throw-ins to increase the perceived value for the consumer, but don't be fooled here. These are worth pennies to Lego, and they just throw them in to make it feel like you're getting 8 full figures when you're not. Like, this number of figures feels okay until you compare it to the $100 Fortnite battle bus that actually includes 9 minifigs that's going to fill out your entire battle bus, versus this, you're not going to be able to fill out your entire turbo tank. It just doesn't seem right. I think if you squinted your eyes and held this thing at arm's length, you'd think you have an amazing clone turbo tank. And kind of seriously, the silhouette of this thing is perfect. It's got great proportions for the clone turbo tank, probably the best we've ever seen. Unfortunately, it's also the smallest we've ever seen. Seeing it next to the 3 prior turbo tanks makes this tiny tank look sad. And it wouldn't be such a big deal if this set was maybe $120, which would be significantly less than any of those other sets adjusted for inflation, but this one is $160. I'll be doing a full comparison video of these on my channel, so I'm not going to go further here, but the other important comparison to make, I think, is to the 2022 ATTE that's currently available for $140. It's gotten smaller and is more expensive than the ATTE, plus it has 250 less pieces for those that purely care about how many pieces are coming in the box. Like, everything points to this set being grossly overpriced. I think $120 is the price it should be for the size that I'm just looking at. But anyway, we all know it's small. Let's see what it can actually do. The front of this turbo tank looks really good to me, surprisingly. You've got this translucent blue color, which looks amazing. It's a really nice accent to the turbo tank, I think. And it's actually translucent. You can see into and out of the turbo tank, so we'll see that opposite angle here in a moment. You've got a sticker on the very front, and it seems to me like the gray matches the gray brick a little bit better, so that seems to be maybe a slight improvement there. The one part on this section I really don't like is the sand blue at the top. You can see in Revenge of the Sith, it is clearly not supposed to be sand blue. It is supposed to be gray on top of the turbo tank here. So we'll come back to that sand blue thing in a little bit when we get to the wheels, because there's more there. But yeah, I don't like that at all. I think accessing this section is simple, but also requires, unfortunately, a little extra work than you would think you'd have to do. So I would normally think you could just open these, lift this up, and you're good to go, which gives you okay access to the interior. You can kind of stick your hand in there, but you really are going to have trouble trying to stick the figure in there. Like, I have bigger hands, but even with smaller hands, I think you'd have some trouble. It's really deep in there, and it's hard to get a figure down there properly like this. So what you actually have to do is lift up the crow's nest, so you can actually lift this all the way up. You can also drop these entire panels down, which will give you just a different way to access this, but even with them up, I think this is plenty of access space. The front panel, interestingly, is not on hinges. It is completely stuck in place, and so it doesn't drop down, and I think that's a big reason that this is a little bit more difficult to access than you might expect, but really, it's the fact that you have to lift the crow's nest on top to actually be able to get your hand in properly. That's kind of annoying. Anyway, inside you've got a large control panel, which I think is nicely detailed, and then you've got basically a pit for the seat for your Galactic Marine, and this is where I question everything Lego Star Wars once again. They claim they don't include wastegapes because the minifig can't sit down, yet they include this backpack that doesn't allow the minifig to sit down with the backpack. You actually have to remove the backpack to have the Galactic Marine sit down. Meanwhile, if they had a wastecape, they could still sit down just fine, no problem. So it's just super ironic to me. I'm gonna make that point every time something like that comes up. I just won't stand for it. Luckily, you don't have to remove the bracket piece on his back. He just has to lean slightly forward. But yeah, with that Galactic Marine in there, I think he looks quite nice, and again, you can see him through those translucent windscreens. Moving into the middle section here, you've already seen a preview of what the crow's nest can do, but you can also place a minifig on top of it. The design of it is not the best. It looks kind of awkward to me. It's probably the best they can do at the given scale, so I understand it, but that doesn't mean I have to say it looks good, right? So yeah, pretty rough. Anyway, you lift it up, and it actually looks pretty cool with the character up higher. I think it looks its best without the character on it, but up in a higher position. But that's going to be up to you how you want to use it, I suppose. When you push down on it, when a minifig's on it, it's actually pretty sturdy. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to just fly back down into the body of the turbo tank, which is nice. Like, you want it to be able to actually stay up like you would expect. But the problem I have with it is you can pretty easily pull it a little bit too far out. And there's nothing on the bottom holding it in to keep it from doing that. That's not been the case on previous versions. I mean, some of the old versions, like, you would click it in place and it would snap into place and hold itself up. This one, I like that it's actually like gonna stop wherever you stop it, but at the same time, the downside is you can pull it right out. It's very easy to put back in. Not the end of the world, but something I definitely noticed. Next, we've got a really cool looking simple cannon on top, making use of the Harry Potter wand piece to give it a nice like thin barrel. It can be rotated, but because this whole section here is removable, it's loose. And so when you do rotate it, it kind of moves around and can get put out of place, which does suck, but it does mostly move okay as long as you apply some downward force while spinning it. Looking at the side panel of the turbo tank, it's actually crazy how small the side panel is on this set. But first off, the red stripe probably should stop right about here, and so this part should be gray. I think that would be more accurate to Revenge of the Sith. I wish they had gotten that right. Doesn't feel right to me just looking at some of the reference material that I looked at. This part in particular, very well designed, also making use of Harry Potter wand pieces. So yeah, you see those in a few places on this set. Really cool. And then you've got the cannon on the side, the stud shooter, which normally I'm really against stud shooters, but in this particular case, it makes a lot of sense to have a stud shooter on the side of the turbo tank. Why they put it so low though, I'm not sure, because on the 2016 turbo tank, and very much accurate to in universe, they put it higher, and this would be where the like actual missiles on the turbo tank in universe would be, like right here. So why not also have it there on this one like you did in 2016. As I alluded to, this top piece is going to be removable, kind of like the C8 Corvette, like the removable top to make it a convertible, even though it's not. Pretty cool. And then we also have the sides that are going to drop down, and it does bring down the front and back panel with it. Some of the older models were just the middle panel. This is going to be all three panels at the same time. So that drops down, the other side can drop down, and you will notice there is a stud here, and that's because it actually connects to that. That holds it on so that it doesn't just flop around on you. And honestly, it doesn't even flop around at all. Like, you can see it's actually got a really sturdy Technic connection. If we flip it and try to move it, like, this thing's not dropping down on its own, but they still kind of went the extra mile to add that stud for that extra strength, which is definitely nice there. Click it in, and yeah, the panel doesn't come off unless you really want it to. So looking at the interior with everything open, it's clearly very vertically challenged, but you'll be surprised to know, as I was, that a clone trooper can still stand up here, just like that. And you can see it's just fine there until you bring the roof in. And unfortunately, because of those inverted tiles see right there, it's in the way, and it doesn't allow the roof to close all of the way. And I think that clearly shows that that is a problem. So Galactic Marines and Bakara, outside of this pit in the middle we'll get to, are going to be relegated to sitting. But first I want to show where the weapons go, because you can see a bunch of empty studs at the back. You are actually able to store all of your clones' weapons back there, which is nice. Surprising, honestly, because with how small this set is, you would think that something like that would be cut, but it's not. Nice to have. Anyway, in the very middle, we have this large pit with a seat, and while on the box it shows Commander Bakara there, I think it's most fitting for Ki-Adi-Mundi, and I guess Ki-Adi-Mundi can also fit in the other seats. He actually does just fine, and it doesn't interfere with the roof or anything, but I think it makes the most sense for Ki-Adi-Mundi to go in the middle there if you're actually going to put him in the turbo tank. And with our other seats, you can just place the Galactic Marines down. The backpacks don't have to be removed because they're not on a seat with a backing, and the wall at the back of them is slightly indented, you can see there, so that allows their backpack to fit just fine. I also like that the minifigs aren't stuck so close together that you have to raise their hands up. Like, it's actually a surprisingly spacious interior given how small it looks. Like, I like that you can fit 5 figures just fine. You can really fit more, especially in front of Ki-Adi-Mundi. There's space for another figure definitely to stand, if not sit, if you wanted to modify the set a little bit and add another seat. There is one more section connected to the middle area here, and if you just lift this panel up, you've actually got a giant gaping hole going into the troop carrying area. Unfortunately, they don't do anything with it. It's just blank. There's not like control panels or a crate or like anything here. They could have done like a shield generator. I don't know. They could have put literally anything here to at least fill the space and make it look cool, but they just left it as a black void. So kind of lame. I was trying to think of any use of this space, and all I could think of at the top here was maybe a spot to hold Ki-Adi-Mundi's lightsaber, because it doesn't seem to interfere with these pieces on the bottom. As it closes back up, it's just fine. So you could maybe use it as storage for that, but yeah, otherwise completely wasted like 5 studs of space there. Looking at that area all closed up though, you can see how good of a job they did minimizing the gaps. You really cannot see into that section at all. Looks great. And then we get into kind of the back third of the turbo tank or tiny tank here with this section, which usually would be something, but on this set it's not. It's nothing. You have nothing there. It's maybe a little structural support in there. I can't even remember. Let's rip it open. Nope, it's really nothing. It doesn't actually, it's just empty. Sad. Anyway, this is the very back of the turbo tank. Again, they are relying pretty heavily on stickers to show the detail, but I do think the stickers in this case look nice. They add to the design of the turbo tank, and we once again are going to have that translucent blue that's going to allow you to see into and out of the turbo tank, which looks great. Again, I think it's such a perfect accent color for the turbo tank. Looks awesome. Now, there unfortunately were some gaps that were seemingly unavoidable here, but we'll look a little bit above that to a big stud shooter cannon, and I actually like this part of the set mostly. Like, it looks really cool, and I think it looks even cooler when you put the Galactic Marine in its place there. There's just something about how low he sits there that just really speaks to me. Unfortunately, it does come at a cost because with the Marine removed, there's a gaping hole into the back of the turbo tank. They didn't close it up. It wasn't big enough to be able to do that. Really just insane the compromises you have to get. But it does look really cool with the Marine in there, so there's that. Now, this back section can be a little bit annoying to access because these two side panels only barely move. The top panel will lift up. The front panel doesn't move either. I am serious. Like, actually, that is all. You can't actually move that any further forward. You can't move these any further out. You're going to have to put your hand pretty deep in there to place the Galactic Marine into the chair. There we go. There's a really interesting control panel here, though, showing a couple of MTTs on the battlefield. It's a nice little interior section, just the access isn't as great as you'd hope. Finally, we get to the underside of the turbo tank and the wheels coming up. But yeah, you got these little tiny cannons on the back end that are pretty cute and good looking here. They can move up and down as you please. And then here you've got what looks like more little cannons on the side of the turbo tank, as well as the like studs not on top. I think that looks particularly good underneath the main body of the turbo tank. Really nice job. They have not done it that well before, so that's something that's a massive upgrade compared to previous turbo tanks. But really what this is part of the suspension system on the turbo tank. Like, that's what it's representing. Obviously it's not acting as part of it, but it looks really nice. I think they did an amazing job there. I can't believe I'm excited to talk about the wheel on the turbo tank, but I am very excited because this is a very different wheel than we have ever seen on a clone turbo tank. Usually they just use 1 or 2 big pieces and it gets the idea across that you've got a large wheel. Now, these wheels are smaller than the previous turbo tanks, but they are far more well designed and more accurate looking. First off, they don't just fall apart when you use them. I know people were worried that if you rolled the set around that it would just fall apart or something. They really don't. I'm pushing, moving, like trying to get it to break. If you push out from the inside, yes, these will come off. But otherwise, any like reasonable force applied to these in any other direction, you're not going to have trouble. Now, I also really like the layered design. I think that's really accurate to what we see. And technically, while I hate the sand blue choice, sand blue is accurate to what we saw in the Clone Wars, according to this render. You can't really tell in the Clone Wars. I tried to find it, couldn't find it where it was clear and obvious that it's sand blue, but in this render, it's sand blue. So I do see why they chose sand blue, although I think they had to really seek that out. If you look in Revenge of the Sith, which is what I think this build should have been solely inspired by, given the minifig selection and the year it's coming out in, the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith, like, they should have used gray. They should have used gray up here. It is clearly not sand blue in Revenge of the Sith, and so from that standpoint, I think it's wrong to use sand blue here. So I did get the pieces together to switch it out to light gray. This is what the build looks like with all light gray instead of sand blue, and I think it makes it look better. Anyway, sand blue aside, the build for the wheel is really good. It uses about 10 or 11 more pieces than the big wheel piece would use. So across the whole set, you're looking at 100 pieces of inflated part count compared to the previous wheels. And so keep that in mind too when you're calculating your price per piece here. Typically, they just use 1 or 2 big pieces on these wheels, and here they're using like 12 or 13 pieces. And so you're getting 100 extra pieces in this set, when if they did it like they used to, you would actually get 100 less for still the same exact stuff. Unsurprisingly, the rolling function for the turbo tank works really well here. The wheels get enough grip, even on a smooth surface, that they are all still rolling. None of them are slipping or anything. You can also, of course, use this on carpet, and you'll probably get even better results. With its built-in suspension, it's got the ability to turn as you're moving, so you just push it down to the side that you want to turn to, and it will actually turn to that side as you are moving. And it's kind of surprising. There are no springs on this set. They use a little bit of rubber on the underside of it that kind of pushes it back to the center spot, but there's There's no springs. The previous turbo tanks all had metal springs on this middle wheel, and they did away with it, and it actually feels just fine. I was quite surprised that it doesn't feel like a compromised system there. Bringing in a thin object, we'll test it over some terrain here. Gets over the iPad, no problem. Next, a slightly thicker notebook, also not really a problem for this turbo tank. My MacBook seems to be the upper limit of how thick of an object this turbo tank can handle, which is fine. I think it can handle enough terrain that, especially for kids, you're gonna have a good play experience. It's not maybe as crazy as some of the older turbo tanks may have been, but I think it gets the job done for the size of the build. For the price, probably not, right? But for the size of the build, it handles terrain well. Besides the price, the size, and the fact that it's not a UT-AT, the other big talking point on this tiny tank has been its stability. Will it just fall apart in your hands as you're moving it around or playing with it? Well, if you're playing with it on the ground, you're not going to have any trouble. And then in my thought process, like if you're carrying it from point A to point B, you just pick it up and carry it there. You're not flying it around. It's not a spaceship. So I think that's important to note with this, is that through normal use, it should be fine. Like if you pick it up like this, you're going to be fine. If you pick it up at the neck, you could have some trouble. Like I grip down here, like that's where most of my force is, like right here. So that's not going to be a problem. But if you hold it higher, this can fall off. So I'll try to like really stress it here. So there you go. It can come apart like that because these are only connected with those 4 studs total there. And so obviously putting all the pressure here, pulling up, is going to eventually cause that to release. So not great, but also avoidable depending on where you're putting the pressure. But also, should you have to think about where you're putting the pressure within this section to just lift it in a place that I would consider to be normal to want to lift the turbo tank? The other way to lift it up would be to just grab this middle section, and you're going to be perfectly fine with this. Like, again, it's not a spaceship, so you really shouldn't have to worry about ragdolling it around. But even so, it seems to perform just fine with my short little test here. Obviously, it would be unreasonable to just grab it from one end or the other, but you can grab it from this end and lift it up and it can do okay. This other end, I just can't even get enough lift to like get this other end to come up, and these will definitely break before I do that. So, you know, but that's an unreasonable way to pick it up, so I don't really see that as a problem. Some people though, because there's no carrying handle, are worried that, you know, when you go to lift up the turbo tank by the doors, ooh, oh my God. Now, to be fair, I have been testing it for a while and it's been stressed a little bit more than maybe when it was first built, but maybe I'm being too fair there. That just shouldn't happen. I'm going to push it together really well here, just like I had just built it. And let's try that again. So lifting that up. All right. And what if we do that? We go back and forth, back and forth. How many shakes does it take until it'll break? Let's see. I'll just keep going till it breaks. There we go. All right. So maybe like 20 or something. Personally, I would never pick up my turbo tank by the doors, right? I would pick it up like this, or normally the doors would be closed because I'd be done playing with it or whatever. Doors would close up with the troopers inside, and then I would lift it like this, which again, you're not going to have a problem with. So I think if you hold it normally, you're fine. But I also think Lego looks at these as kids' toys a lot of time, and like, yeah, you can't just have your set fall apart when you pick it up in a slightly abnormal way. The other way I've seen people try to pick this up is like this. That's not going to happen, and I don't think that's a normal way to pick it up. But it also totally looks like a place you would just grab the turbo tank and lift it up and think you could just walk around with it. So I could definitely see some kids having some trouble with that. Now, I think anyone watching a video like this and understanding what I'm saying, you could understand like pick up the turbo tank like this, or close the doors and pick the turbo tank up like that, right? Like normal ways to pick up the turbo tank. But again, as a kid's toy first, supposedly, right? In a lot of cases, this should have been better engineered to not fall apart through, while I'll call it rugged use, it's still somewhat normal to be expected as a kid's toy use. Let me just hold it with one hand, trying to do something stupid here to see if it'll break. And it's holding together okay, but yeah, eventually it's going to give holding it by a single door. And just to test it, I got to try out 2010 Turbo Tank. It's a much heavier model, and it has a much more, oh, look, can't hold it by the door. But again, the argument is that this one doesn't have a carrying handle, so it should be more robust maybe than this one. I'm not even going to try 2005 because I know that one will fall apart, but here's 2016. This one you can see much more Technic on the inside. This one, and then there goes the spring-loaded shooters. The doors do seem to hold up better. Let's see, we'll shake it around a bit. It is not falling apart. So 2016 maybe a little more durable than 2025 here. I think if you're an older collector, you might just never run into any of the major stability issues that we do see, because you're going to pick it up in very normal ways. You're going to pick it up by the bottom, you're going to pick it up by the doors here. Obviously no carrying handle, so you can't do that. But my issue as an adult collector really is this section here, where if this falls apart, it really sucks. And that's somewhere where I would normally grab the turbo tank. And like I said, even if you're grabbing it abnormally, it's somewhere where a kid might do it, and so it should be better reinforced. And I think that could be an issue. There's one last annoyance I have with this, messing around with it. This stud becomes a little bit dislodged, and when it's dislodged, it actually doesn't allow the door to connect. See how it will not connect? You have to like perfectly straighten it to get it to connect, and so that just kind of happens naturally, and it's really annoying. Again, see, it's not connected there. Move it slightly. Now it connects. Like, really annoying. So I don't like that either. I hope they don't do the Apple thing with the iPhone 4S where they just tell you you're holding it wrong, because ultimately, like, even when I'm holding it in a way that I consider to be right, I think you should be able to hold the set like this. It's a normal way to hold it. It falls apart. And it probably feels like Lego should address this. They should go in and rework the interior to make it more stable. They've done this in the past with other models. The 2002 Slave 1 is a good example of a set that would actually break in your hands if you held it the wrong way. And so Lego at some point during that set's lifespan released an updated version that fixed that design flaw. I kind of would hope they'd do the same thing here. You've now seen everything this set has to offer, and I am so disappointed in the summer 2025 Republic Juggernaut on so many levels. The price, obviously way too high. The build, obviously way too small. The figures, obviously not good enough because they would have been better 10 years ago. How is that even possible? And Sand Blue bad, and Battle Droids bad in a clone set. Like, we should have gotten 6 Galactic Marines instead of 3 Battle Droids. Like, just switch them out. The Fortnite Battle Bus had enough minifigs to fill its seats for $100. Why can't the turbo tank for $160? I really do not recommend buying this set. It is clearly a $120 set that they jacked the price up to take advantage of people that have wanted these figures for a long time, which might have worked if they would put in the effort to make the figs as good as they would have been 10 years ago, but they just don't, and it doesn't make sense. In another life, maybe things would have been different, but I feel like this set encapsulates almost everything that I think is wrong with Lego Star Wars, and I wish it wasn't that way.